resistance, and I'm going to quote Chris Bradshaw. Let's be disruptors. Let's disrupt some of this. It doesn't have to be the way it is. There is no excuse for anyone in the District of Columbia, what I believe is the most powerful city in the most powerful country in the known universe, to be hungry. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Beverly Wheeler with DC Central Kitchen.
I'm Monica Jones with DC Hunger Solutions. It's a pleasure to meet you.
We're going to have some fun.
Yes, we are.
So, we'll get into this conversation. Who and what inspired you to begin work in food equity?
So my early inspiration for working in food equity started as an educator for middle and high school students in Georgia. I worked with students who lived in families that were experiencing low income. So my students lived well below the poverty line in Atlanta, and I worked with them to make sure that they had access to education, financial, and nutrition supports. Because they qualified for free and reduced lunch and were categorized as such, I worked to make sure that they had the things that they needed so that they could thrive as they matriculated throughout high school. And so they served as my early inspiration, working with one of the state representatives, ensuring that, public policy and funding was accessible to them as public school students, but just as individuals, I worked with them. In addition to that, I'm also inspired by the work of Leah Penniman. Her and her sister are the founders of Soul Fire Farm in New York, and they work on issues that address food apartheid, food sovereignty. They do a lot of course, local sourcing. And so I'm constantly inspired by their work, as well as Fannie Lou Hamer. I think we are all inspired by her and her movement to support the Black community, to support just Black people in general. So those are two of the individuals, in addition to my students, who started my inspiration in my work towards food equity. So now I want to find out that same exact thing from you. Who and or what inspired you to begin your work in food equity?
I think I seriously started thinking about food equity when I was the president and CEO of Center City Public Charter Schools. There were 6 schools, and at the time they were in some of the poorest communities. And it used to disturb me when I would see our students come to school with orange fingers and orange tongues, because what it said to me was that they had had Fanta and Cheetos for breakfast. So I got a call from the then director of DC Hunger Solutions asking if I might do breakfast in the classroom. No one was doing that. And we became the first charter schools in the city to serve breakfast in the classroom. And student attendance, student grades, student behavior all changed dramatically when we started doing breakfast in the classroom. So that started me running, and I couldn't come back after that.
I think that's amazing. I think our students, whether they're DC Public or DC Public Charter Schools, or even if they attend private schools, I think all of our DC students are better knowing that we have free breakfast in schools to start off their day. So I'm thankful for that very early work that inspired you at Center City to get us going.
Well, as we talk about what our children need or what the city needs, what role does public policy, we're in Washington, D.C., what role does public policy play in food equity?
Public policy plays a huge role in food equity. So when we think about our federal nutrition assistance programs, which are the way most people receive food outside of just generally purchasing it. Through public policy, we have the ability to attach funding, to allocate funding to programs such as SNAP, to our school lunch programs, our school breakfast programs, as you mentioned. And so this is a chance for us to say, hey, we recognize that we have a problem and we need a permanent solution. And that permanent solution is often implemented at the public policy level. So here in the district, one of the things that we are most excited about when it comes to our school-age children is healthy school meals for all. We're really excited that Councilmember Henderson, as well as the other DC council members, introduced legislation, and it will continue to offer school meals at no cost to our district students. So in addition to already having free breakfast, students will now have school lunch once this is passed in the district, which means that regardless of income level, a student can go to school and know that they will receive those nutrition supports that they need in order to fuel their learnings. I'm sure you and I know what it feels like, or you can remember what it feels like to be in school and you cannot wait for lunch. I'm so hungry. I don't know what my teacher is talking about because all I hear is my belly. Students now, with the passing of Healthy School Meals for All, or the Universal School Meals in DC as the legislation is called, students won't have to worry about that. In addition, we'll have, we're thankful that DC Council has passed a Give SNAP a Raise and No Senior Hunger. And with both of those individual pieces of legislation, it supports our individuals, our families, our older adults that are living with low income. They won't have to worry about, how am I going to afford groceries? How am I going to afford food, which is a basic human right, not a political issue. It's a basic human right. So, thinking about your work that you do as a Chief Knowledge Officer at DC Central Kitchen, as well as the plethora of other achievements that you've had in your career thus far, what are some of the threats that you feel that you have faced in food equity within your career?
So I think as we look at not only food, people, as you said, people like to silo us in food, but it really is a much bigger issue. So when we look at the inequity in food, one of the things we understand, and COVID helped us understand this more than anything else, that when you have food apartheid or food inequity, then you have chronic diet-related illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the chronic diet-related illnesses that come in the Black community because we don't have access to access to healthy, affordable food, those comorbidities caused us to lose a lot of individuals during COVID. So for me, that was one of the critical pieces where we had to go back. And we've got to think about how it is that we are going to feed ourselves and how it is we're going to represent and no longer be allowed to just have to wait till somebody comes.
I love that. And so in that same vein, how valuable is the availability of choice when it comes to food equity?
I think choice is critical. When you decided to get up this morning, you had a choice about what you would put on and how you would get here and whatever. In our communities, that choice has often been taken away because of other people's decisions about what we deserve, how we deserve it, and how it would be presented to us. So choice is critical. That's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about some of the, what I call them are the food heroes. Particularly in Ward 7 and 8. One of my favorite people is Bo Luther. So Bo Luther is a returning citizen, and he started Hustlers to Harvesters,
Ooh.
where he actually is teaching young people how to grow things.
I love it.
Another one of my heroes is Chris Bradshaw from Dreaming Out Loud, where they have a farm at Kelly Miller. And they are teaching young people what it means to grow food. They have a CSA where people they can plan and they can get food. They help deliver food to WIC participants. They even have an entrepreneur program for young people who want to become farmers. So there that. I'm also want to call out Mary Blackford, who started Market 7 in River Terrace, where I grew up. And so where she couldn't find food, but with her program, she is actually lifting up a lot of other individuals and how they do that. So there are ways that we can bring back this, that we can have this choice, that we can actually do this. So I'm very excited.
I love that. I really, really love that.
So I'm going to turn the question on you.
Okay.
And ask you, how does food inequity impact the Black community?
So I think when we talk about food inequity, we have to look at what's available to our district residents. As I stated earlier, the lack of grocery stores in Ward 7 and 8 pose the issue when it comes to having access to those healthy, nutritious food options, or even just basic grocery staples that you need. We know that west of the river in our other wards, that's not so much an issue as it is east of the river. And so when we think about the limited access to those full service grocery stores, we also think about, the transportation, the few grocery stores. I believe there's 4 that are east of the river. Out of the 81 grocery stores that are in the district, I believe there's 4 that are east of the river. But for some residents, it's not easy to get to. If you're an older adult and you have mobility issues, or if you lack transportation, it can be difficult just to get from one side of the city to the next. And so we're further pushing people into a place of, I don't have access. We're further launching out those disparities that our residents that they experience. And so we have to be mindful of that. And we have to, when we're creating public policy, when we are advocating, when we are doing outreach, we have to do targeted outreach, targeted public policy that is going to keep in mind the needs of our most vulnerable communities, which are our older adults. And I call them our littlest eaters because they don't go to work every day. And so they're relying on someone else to provide for them. So our children that are in childcare, our school-age children, we have to be mindful that these are the ones that need our support the most. And so we have to look at what are the type of solutions that are in place. Sometimes it's not always a full service grocery store that we need. Sometimes we have to look at our healthy corner stores. Our healthy corner stores are a solution to addressing the food inequities in the district. So while I'm going to the corner store, I can also grab a basket of fruit. I can grab some prepackaged grapes. I can grab these fresh food items that are available here with a mindset that we want to make sure that we're bringing resources to the people. It's not all about having them go where the resources are, but we want to make sure that we are bringing the resources to the people. And so our healthy corner stores are another way that we do that. But branching out, you mentioned there's a CSA. I often call CSA Netflix for produce because it is a subscription program that individuals can buy into, and then through that farmer they have a monthly access to fresh produce that is available that will come directly to them. They can pick it up if they choose to. And so CSAs are a great way for child care centers, for even schools, but especially for individual residents in the district to ensure that they have access to that fresh, nutritious produce that they need just in every day. We also have co-ops, thinking about developing co-ops in the district is another way. So when we're creating solutions and when we're thinking about how to address the inequities, sometimes it's not always doing things exactly how they've been done before. We have to get in the mindset of let's do something different.
There are a lot of federal nutrition programs.
There are.
What are you doing and how are you making sure we have those in the city?
So there are federally 22 different nutrition assistance programs that sit underneath USDA. Here at DC Hunger Solutions, like I said a little bit earlier, our work is through ending hunger in the nation's capital, and we do that through the highest and best use of our federal nutrition programs. So we look at those federal nutrition programs that are accessible and available in the district. So SNAP, we have PEBT, which pandemic EBT, which is kind of coming to an end. We also have National School Lunch. We have summer meals locally. It's the DC Youth Meals Program. We have CACFP, which is the Child and Adult Food Care Program. We also have WIC, and there's several others that we advocate for. And so because we know DC is not a state, not yet. And so we have to look at those nutrition assistance programs, and how we can increase access and increase participation across the board. We look at what's being done federally, and we work with our state agencies. So we work a lot with DHS to make sure that our SNAP eligible families, our older adults, we're really excited about the Elderly Simplified application. DC has the highest rate of older adult or senior hunger in the country. And so that simplified application process will make it easier easier for our older adults to access SNAP. And so with that, we are anticipating an increased level of participation among SNAP residents. We also have Pandemic EBT, which currently will support children in childcare under the age of 6, as well as all children 0 to 18 in the district over the summer, as long as they reside in SNAP eligible households. So we work with our state agencies. OSSI is another great partner that we work with when it comes to all of our child nutrition programs, CACFP, National School Lunch, our DC Youth Meals program, to make sure that there's increased participation, that at several different access points, that our families and our children feel supported, that if they have any questions on what does school lunch look like at my charter school? What does school lunch look like at my public school? We work to make sure that those parents understand, what is the CEP school? What does this mean? Or how do I do XYZ, when it comes to school lunch for my child? And we also educate. We do a lot of technical assistance training, a lot of education. So if you have any question, not just about our federal programs, but if you have a question about grocery store access, if you have a question about WIC, the district is fully e-WIC. There are no more paper checks in the district. So if you have a question on, I am prenatal and I am desiring to sign up for WIC, how do I do that? We will connect you with a WIC clinic and we'll make sure that you receive those services. We talked a little bit about grocery store access in the district, and we know that that is an ongoing issue and challenge that we're very thankful that DC Council and the mayor have continuously put funding behind, and they recognize it. We know we have the new Lidl that opened up, and there's another one I believe that is coming. And so can you talk a little bit about the availability of grocery store options and how it has impacted the Black community in DC?
Well, I think we talked a little bit earlier about a chronic diet-related illness. The lack of grocery stores, I believe, is a direct facilitator of that issue. So I think that as we look at systemic racism, as we look at the east, when we talk east of the river becomes a divide.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and one of the challenges I always thought about when we look at grocery stores is, why aren't the grocery stores there?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with the grocery stores? And when we did some research on it, what we find is that the retail stores have a business model.
Mm-hmm.
And their business model is based on education and income.
Mm-hmm.
Should education and income change, they will in fact find their way into different neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the challenges that we have, which is why I'm very excited about some of the things we do at DC Central Kitchen.
I love it. I love it. So as a Chief Knowledge Officer at DC Central Kitchen, how do you use the information or the knowledge to improve the relationship between our community as well as our food choices?
So DC Central Kitchen is the community. We really are in the community. So what we like to talk about is the triple bottom line. And the triple bottom line is creating job opportunities and being creative about that. It is, in fact, having healthy food access, making sure that there's healthy food access. And there's also an opportunity for us to test innovative solutions to systemic problems. And so that's what we do. And we capture that through one of our biggest programs is the Culinary Jobs Training Program. Mm-hmm. And I love the Culinary Jobs Training Program because it actually addresses the needs of people who have high barriers to employment. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, they're individuals who may be returning citizens. They may have suffered from drug addiction. They may, in fact, be homeless. There is some trauma in their life that keeps them from being able to join a lot of the employment that's in Washington, D.C. So the Culinary Jobs Training Program, I like to say, or we actually say it, it's not doesn't come from me, is knife skills and life skills. many of our graduates from our program actually come to work
I love
at
it.
DC Central Kitchen. So you talked a little bit about healthy school meals. Many of our graduates are actually making those meals. It's many of the students are and as part of the community, we're doing sustainable foods. So we're actually procuring local foods. And we're doing that. Many of our meals go into some of the homeless shelters,
Mm-hmm.
some of the other community centers, senior centers, where we're doing the food. So we're growing the food. We're training people to be involved in it. We're doing healthy food access. I've got to plug our Healthy Corner stores because we're in year 11 of the Healthy Corner stores, which we started with DC Hunger Solutions, where we provide, we help corner stores
Mm-hmm.
actually have produce, and we have a community of practice now where we actually work with corner store owners, and we've been able to do that. We had our 1 million units since COVID over
Yay.
at the Elmira Market off of South Capitol Street, just
Mm-hmm.
on Martin Luther King Day. So we're very excited about what we do in the community, and we're very mindful
Mm-hmm.
of how we do that kind of work. So at my job, it continues to be playing center field, where I get to look at the different pieces of what we do. So we have our Healthy Corner stores, we have our culinary jobs training, we have community development, and I'm looking at all of our pieces and how we can have them weave those together. We're doing a great job. I just come in and I can sort of look a little bit higher and sort of figure out where they are. And I use a lot of data to do that. It is the best job in the world so far. I absolutely love it because I'm just learning so much. And it really is about the community. We believe in social enterprise. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a cafe. So
Mm.
we actually have 2 cafes, soon to have 3 cafes, but one of our cafes is in the Martin Luther King Library, Junior Library,
Okay.
and it's Mary Ann's, and it's named after a graduate of the Culinary Jobs Training Program, and it's a fantastic cafe. You can go in, you can get fresh food. Also made by our culinary jobs training and our staff, who are often graduates of the culinary jobs training. We're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being in that space where I can support how we make a difference. I'm sorry, I get really
No,
psyched
no, I
about
love
this. So,
it. I love it. No, just based off of that, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to addressing the food inequities in the district to supporting our Black residents, it's fair to say that it really is a community approach. It's not looking at one specific area or one specific solution or one individual organization. It really is all of us coming together to play a role to make this happen. So with that, I kind of want to transition just into this question. What is the mark that you would like to leave on the Black community? Not just perspective to your work, but of course, but just thinking at it full circle and everything that you're involved in, DC Central Kitchen and beyond. What mark would you like to leave in the Black community?
so as you said, it's a deep question. When I'm talking in the community, one of the things as a researcher and as a policy analyst is people will come into your neighborhood and tell you what you need.
Mm-hmm.
They will tell you what they think is the best for you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I like to tell the residents that I'm talking to and my compatriots, if someone comes to you that way, ask them to leave your house
Mm.
because they aren't there for you. What I would like to see, and the mark I would like, is to ensure many of the individuals who are in the community and to remind them, similar to what you said, this is your community. That's why I lift up those individuals, like Bo Luther
Mm-hmm.
and the Hucksters to Harvesters,
Mm-hmm.
or Chris Bradshaw dreaming out loud, or Mary Blackford with, Market 7, building our own union market where we're supporting each other. Let's teach the young people the importance of putting your hands in dirt and being self-sufficient. Let's teach a little bit about delayed gratification, where you understand, or I won't even call it delayed gratification, because the gratification of putting the seeds in the oil and the seeds in the soil, that's one thing. The gratification of watching it, grow, the gratification of harvesting it. And then let's figure out how we're going to cook it and we're going to eat it. So it's not delayed, it's continuous gratification. And let's teach each other how to do that. I want that. And I want us to have a community where we can just go and we can be in it. And I don't mind people visiting the community and taking part of and shopping and doing all that other stuff. But I want us to feel not only that we can do it, that we have done it, that we deserve it, and that it's ours and no one can take it from us.
I love that. I love all of that. So the last question that I have for you is, what does Black resistance mean to you?
That means we do it. And then we do it up and down the line, that we're doing it on the street. We're doing it as how we pay for things. We're doing it by who we elect as our, elected officials, who we hold accountable, that the resistance is all the way up the line. And we need to be vigilant in our resistance, because as soon as we become compliant, then they start taking advantage of us or taking us for granted. So I want to see the continued resistance. I also think, resistance, and I'm going to quote Chris Bradshaw, let's be disruptors. Let's disrupt some of this. It doesn't have to be the way it is. There is no excuse for anyone in the District of Columbia, what I believe is the most powerful city in the most powerful country in the known universe, to be hungry. I also don't believe that you need to be homeless, jobless. There is plenty for us to do, and if we're waiting around for others to do it for us, it is not going to happen. It is not going to be a pretty picture, and we're not going to like it. So why don't we just make our own picture, and then let's just put that together and have it happen. So now that I have emoted, what does Black resistance mean to you?
I think when I hear the phrase Black resistance, similar to what you said and similar to the words of Chris Bradshaw for Dreaming Out Loud, it's being a disruptor. But not just that, but it's standing up against those things that no longer serve us. I'm big on letting go of what no longer serves us. And so when we look at our food systems, when we look at systems in general, I often say systems are designed to do something. And the system that is currently in place is doing what it was designed to do. It was not designed to support our Black faces. It was not designed to support our Black families or our Black people. I think Black resistance is all about education and acknowledging the work that has been done before us. It's not new, it's ongoing, and it's generational. When I think about racism, I often think that it's a deep-seated, it's a issue that happens at the root. If you look at a tree, you can't just cut a tree down at the base and think that, oh, it's just going to sprout new leaves and the roots are still bad. I've got to pull that thing up by the roots and replant it, put the seeds in the soil, get my hands dirty. And I think Black resistance is about that, willing to get your hands dirty, to pull up the bad roots so that we can replant the good, so that we can see the good. But again, lending my voice to stand up against that, not just on a corporate level, not just on an organizational level, but just on an everyday basis.
Thank you. You have energized or re-energized me. I'm really excited that we had an opportunity to sit and talk about this because it really is important. So I have got to acknowledge the space that we're in.
Yes.
So I grew up in Washington, D.C. So the public library is critical to me. I love it. I went to the Dorothy Height Library when I was young. I would go at the end of school and I would read Lois Linsky books.
Ooh.
And the librarians here found a Lois Linsky book for me. And it's an old book for sure. And every Sunday, my mom would take me to the Carnegie Library. And I could walk up the marble stairs and turn left, which is where they had the children's room. I live in Columbia Heights, and so I get to go to the Mount Pleasant Library or the Petworth Library because I'm right there. So I'm really excited about the library, and I want to make sure that people decide to come out to the library because it is a fantastical place to be. And I think it's one of the places that we can help people understand food apartheid, get some recipes, just to learn the history of where we are. So I want to thank you for
thank
being
you. Thank you, Beverly. You are a wealth of knowledge and resource. You're not the chief knowledge officer for no reason. And I agree with you. Our public libraries are a place for our families to nourish themselves in multiple different areas. I believe our libraries also have served at one point as a site for our DC Youth Meals program.
Yes.
So when children are out of school for the summer, the libraries have programming, but students can also receive a meal at no cost at one of our libraries. So I definitely co-sign with you as one who was really excited to get a library card when I was in elementary school. This may be where I nerd out a little bit. Library was probably one of my favorite classes when I was in elementary school. I really loved going through the library and picking out a book. I love the smell of books. And so I definitely believe that everyone should take the time, regardless of age, and spend some time at one of the public libraries. So, but thank you, Beverly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.